friend is dead, yeah, and this is what we're doing to support him, yeah. And look what they're doing. Look. Look.
There's been a lot of knife crime. I've had 3 murders in the last couple of weeks.
So how many people rob you?
Can you answer me if I ask you how a 10-year-old boy ends up leading a gang and getting stabbed nearly to death? It sounds unbelievable, but it happened. In the quiet streets of Birkenhead, a boy named Alfie Hodgin, barely 10 years old, was already making headlines for all the wrong reasons. It was December 2014, and the Wirral Magistrates Court had just slapped an antisocial behaviour order, ASBO, on him, making him one of the youngest ever to receive such a restriction in the UK. But how did a child caught causing chaos on the streets spiral into drugs, gangs, and 27 stab wounds? And more importantly, who was helping him? Well, Alfie wasn't alone in his early brush with the law. His older brother John, just 14 at the time, had received an ASBO a month earlier in November 2014. The two brothers were part of a gang in Birkenhead's North End, a rough patch where trouble seemed to follow them like a shadow. According to reports from the Liverpool Echo, John was accused of leading a group that threw rocks at cars and hurled insults at vulnerable people, leaving a trail of fear in their wake. The ASBOs were supposed to be a wake-up call, a chance to steer the boys back to a better path. But instead, they were like a badge of rebellion, and the brothers kept diving deeper into trouble. The ASBOs didn't stop Alfie from breaking the law. By 13, he had a rap sheet that included theft, criminal damage, assault, and even breaching his ASBO. In 2019, at just 15, he was sent to a young offender institution for carrying a bladed weapon in public. It was a grim milestone for a boy who should have been worrying about school, not survival on the streets. Around this time, there was a flicker of hope. Alfie got involved with Everton in the community, a charity tied to Everton Football Club that works with at-risk youth. For a moment, it looked like he might turn things around. But then the COVID-19 pandemic hit in 2020, shutting down programs like the one Alfie was in. That lifeline was cut, and he was left adrift. With no support to hold him steady, Alfie fell back into the only world he knew. By 2021, he was back behind bars after being caught with drugs, a phone, and weapons in his cell. It was a pattern that was becoming all too familiar: crime, punishment, and no real escape. When he was released on licence, Alfie got pulled into the dangerous world of county lines drug dealing. County lines is a term that's become chillingly common in the UK. It's when gangs from cities like Liverpool or London use kids and vulnerable people to ferry drugs like heroin and crack cocaine to smaller towns, often exploiting them with promises of money or threats of violence. According to the National Crime Agency, county lines gangs operate over 1,000 drug lines across the UK, generating an estimated £800 million a year. Kids as young as 12 are often roped in, lured by the promise of quick cash or pressured by fear. Alfie's role in this world started as a runner, working off a debt for an organised crime group, but he wasn't content to stay at the bottom. In a bold and reckless move, he stole a graft phone, a burner used to coordinate drug deals, and a stash of drugs from the gang. With that, he tried to set up his own operation, a teenage kingpin in the making. It was a dangerous gamble, and it backfired spectacularly. On July 14th, 2022, in the early evening light of Ellesmere Port's town centre, 4 men in a grey SUV hunted him down. They jumped out, machetes flashing, and attacked Alfie in a brutal retribution. He was stabbed 27 times, left bleeding on Worcester Road as the attackers fled. The scene was chaotic. Photos showed a dozen police cars, streets cordoned off, and an air ambulance landing nearby. Alfie spent 2 weeks in the hospital, his body scarred and his life hanging by a thread. But the story doesn't end with the attack. When police found Alfie, slumped and bloodied, they also found £1,220 worth of heroin, £1,100 worth of crack cocaine, £1,208 in cash, and the graft phone. Even in the middle of a near-fatal assault, he was carrying the tools of his trade. On October 5th, 2022, Alfie stood in Liverpool Crown Court, pleading guilty to possession of heroin and crack cocaine with intent to supply. The judge sentenced him to 2.5 years in a young offender institution. His lawyer, John Wheat, painted a grim picture of Alfie's life, a boy raised in a violent and criminal environment, distrustful of adults, his education shattered by chaos. Wheate said Alfie wanted to change, to break free from the cycle that had trapped him since he was 10. But you know what? The fact is, Alfie's story window into a bigger problem. Youth gangs and knife crime have been plaguing the UK for years. In 2021, the Home Office reported 41,000 knife crime offences across England and Wales, with London, Manchester and Merseyside being hotspots. Teenagers are often both victims and perpetrators. In 2023, the BBC reported that 16-year-old Ahmad from Huddersfield was stabbed to death, one of 247 homicides involving knives that year. Like Alfie, many of these kids are drawn into gangs through a mix of poverty, lack of opportunity, and the allure of belonging. The Guardian noted that children as young as 10 are being exploited by county lines gangs, with 4,000 kids referred to social services for gang involvement in 2022 alone. The psychological toll on these kids is brutal. According to a 2019 study by the University of Birmingham, young gang members often suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, anxiety, and depression. The constant threat of violence, like the attack Alfie endured, leaves deep scars, mental and physical. Dr. Sally Ann Ashton, a criminologist, explains that kids in gangs develop a hypervigilant mindset, always on edge, expecting betrayal or attack. This can lead to paranoia and a warped sense of loyalty to the gang, which becomes a twisted substitute for family. Alfie's ASBO at 10 wasn't just a rare case. In the early 2000s, ASBOs were a controversial tool to tackle low-level crime and antisocial behaviour. Between 1999 and 2015, over 20,000 ASBOs were issued in England and Wales, with 1,200 given to kids under 17, according to Home Office data. Critics like the charity Barnardo's argued that ASBOs often criminalised kids rather than helping them, pushing them toward gangs instead of away. In 2014, the year Alfie got his, 2,100 ASBOs were issued nationwide, but they were scrapped soon after, replaced by less punitive measures like community protection notices. For Alfie, the ASBO was less a deterrent and more a stepping stone to a criminal record. On one hand, locking up a 10-year-old for antisocial behaviour seems harsh. On the other, letting repeat offenders like Alfie slide can embolden them. In 2022, the Ministry of Justice reported that 68% of young offenders re-offend within a year of release, a stat that Alfie's multiple stints behind bars bear out. Programmes like Everton in the Community can help, but they're stretched thin. The charity supported 5,000 kids in Merseyside in 2022, but funding cuts and the pandemic gutted their reach. Alfie's lawyer said he's determined to change, but the odds are stacked against him. A 2023 report by the Howard League for Penal Reform found that young offenders in custody often get little rehabilitation, with 80% reporting no access to education or therapy. Alfie's brother John didn't fare much better. In 2019, he was jailed for 2 years and 7 months after a high-speed chase in a stolen car tracked by a police helicopter, per the Liverpool Echo. Like Alfie, he was back in court in 2022, serving time for drug-related crimes. Their story is a family tragedy, 2 brothers caught in the same web. It's not uncommon. A 2018 study by the Centre for Crime and Justice Studies found that siblings of gang members are 50% more likely to join gangs themselves, drawn in by loyalty or shared circumstances. Across the UK, thousands of kids are in the same boat, trapped in a cycle of gangs, drugs, and violence. In 2024, the government pledged £100 million to tackle youth violence, but critics say it's a drop in the bucket. What do you think? How can we break the cycle of violence and gangs that many young kids like Alfie are trapped in? Do you believe that better support systems could make a real difference? Or is it too late for some of these children? Share your thoughts in the comments below. See you in our next video. Until then, take care and thanks for watching.